So, you've built some awesome software. Now what? How do you make sure it actually works and doesn't break on your users? Well, here's the challenge. You literally can't test everything. In this explainer, we're going to break down two really powerful techniques that help you find more bugs by, believe it or not, testing less.
Okay, let's start with this big one. This quote is basically the first rule of software testing, and for a very simple reason. It's absolutely true. Every single developer, every tester has run into this wall. If you try to test every possible thing a user could do, you'd never ship your product. It's just not going to happen.
Right. So, if we all agree that testing everything is impossible, how in the world do we ship software with any confidence? I mean, how can we trust it? Well, the answer isn't just throwing more tests at the problem. It's about having a much smarter strategy for choosing which tests to run in the first place.
So what's the real problem here? It's the sheer number of possible inputs. It's practically infinite. Just think about a simple input field for age. You could test age 1, then 2, then 3, all the way into the thousands, right? And what about negative numbers, or decimals, or someone typing hello in there? With limited time and money, trying to test all of that is, well, just not an option.
Okay, so this is where we get clever. Our first technique is a classic divide and conquer strategy. It's all about taking that basically infinite pool of test cases and shrinking it down to a small, smart, and totally manageable set. It's a technique called equivalence partitioning. And the idea is actually pretty simple. You take all the possible inputs and you divide them into groups, or what we call partitions. The whole key here is that everything inside one of these partitions should be treated the exact same way by the software. So you end up with a few groups for valid data, the stuff that should work, and a few for invalid data, the stuff that should. Let's make this super clear with an example we can all get behind. Pizza. Let's say our system lets you order between 1 and 10 pizzas. Using equivalence partitioning, we can spot a few obvious groups. You've got your valid partition, which is any number from 1 to 10, and then you have your invalid partitions, 0 and any number less than that, and of course, 11 and any number higher than that. Simple, right? And here's where the magic happens. We can now make a really powerful assumption. If we test just one value from a partition, let's say we test ordering 5 pizzas, and that test passes, we can be pretty darn confident that ordering 2 or 7 or 9 pizzas is also going to work. This simple idea is what lets us slash our workload. Let's try another one. Imagine a shopping cart with different discount tiers based on how much you spend. We can quickly map out our partitions. There's one for any amount under $100, which gets no discount. Then a separate partition for each discount level. See? Instead of testing hundreds of different dollar amounts, we just need to pick one from each of these groups to feel good that the logic is working. Now, creating these partitions is a fantastic first step. It really is. But to make our testing even more powerful, we need to focus on the most fragile parts of our code. The places where bugs absolutely love to hide. And that means it's time to live on the edge.
And that brings us to our second technique, boundary value analysis, or BVA for short. Now, it is so important to see this as a powerful addition, not a replacement for what we just did. BVA basically refines our strategy by telling us exactly which values to pick from the edges of those partitions we just created.
VVA works on a really simple premise. A huge number of bugs tend to clump together right at the boundaries between partitions. Think about it. A simple typo like greater than instead of greater than or equal to, that one tiny character can cause a major bug. So VVA focuses our testing with laser precision on these super high-risk edge cases.
So here's how it works in practice. For any given range, you zoom right in on the boundaries. You test the minimum value, the maximum value, and the numbers immediately on either side of them. This is precisely where the logic is most likely to trip up.
Let's go back to our pizza shop. Equivalence partitioning might have told us to test a random valid number, like 5. BVA is way more precise. It tells us to test the exact boundary points, 0 and 1, and 10 and 11. Just those 4 tests gives us incredible insight into how the system handles those critical transitions.
And you can even get a little more granular with this. The whole idea is to test the value at the boundary and the values right next door. So for that $100 discount, you'd test $99, $100, and $101. This level of detail is just brilliant for catching those classic off-by-1 errors that are so easy for developers to make.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together. Let's see how these two powerful techniques combine into a single, super efficient test plan. This is where the magic really happens.
Check this out. Here's a combined plan for our shopping cart discount. First, we use equivalence partitioning to pick a value from the middle of each tier, like $140 and $370. That gives us our broad coverage. Then, we add boundary value analysis to zero in on those critical transition points, like $99, $100, and $201. Together, they create a small but incredibly mighty test suite.
And this is the key relationship you've got to remember. Think of it like this. Equivalence partitioning is like doing a flyover to make sure you haven't missed an entire forest. Then, boundary value analysis comes in and inspects the most important individual trees up close. You really need both for an effective plan.
So, we've gone through all of this theory, but why does it actually matter? What's the real-world impact? What's the big payoff here?
Well, the benefits are just enormous. You can take a nearly infinite number of potential tests and slash them down to a small, manageable few. This saves a huge amount of time, effort, and of course, money. And maybe most importantly, it helps you find the most critical bugs way more efficiently because you're looking in all the right places.
But, and this is a big but, these techniques are not magic bullets. Their success really depends on the skill of the person designing the tests. If you identify the partitions wrong, you could end up with huge gaps in your testing. So these methods are an incredibly powerful tool, but they still need human expertise to work well.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big question to think about. Even with systematic, powerful techniques like these to guide us, does the quality of our testing still, at the end of the day, come down to the experience, the intuition, and the expertise of the person designing the tests? It seems like even in a world of smart techniques, the smartest component is still the tester.